Good morning. It is Wednesday, December the 19th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. Speaking to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about how it is that the left infects our culture, and more specifically, and how, in other words, how they shape reality. And really the way they do it is through sloganeering. They use various little slogans that is meant to create a certain mindset in the American public. And then once you absorb this mindset, it's going to then affect you, affect the way you live your life, and of course, affect the way you vote. So the sloganeering takes place throughout mass communications. So it takes place on radio, it takes place on television, it takes place in the movies, newspapers, magazines, and on bumper stickers. So one of the slogans, I'm going to list off the slogans and maybe make a quick comment about each one. The first one is question everything. This is something that I've seen on bumper stickers. Question everything. Now, the problem with this diktat, because that's what it is somebody dictating to you. They're not asking. They're not saying please. They're commanding. Question everything. But if we're going to obey that diktat, then the first thing we have to do is question the diktat itself and ask why. Question everything. Second, question authority. Same idea. Question authority says who. So that's the proper response to that one. All's well that ends well. That's more of one that goes back in American history farther than just the 60s and 70s, but it is a corollary of the ends justify the means. So anybody says, well, all's well that ends well, no, baloney. What that usually means is we tried to achieve a certain outcome, things got screwed up, but we somehow straightened the mess out. It means that you made a mistake. You screwed up somewhere. And you need to find out what that mistake is so that you don't make it again next time. And you don't want to make mistakes because we all have a limited amount of time on this earth. Every time you make mistakes that you don't need to make, you're wasting time. Don't defend your property. It's not worth it. And the corollary to that one is, why don't you just let it go? You'll hear a lot of this from police officers. You'll see a video of somebody that's going to get mugged, and they fight back, and they win. They keep their property, or they're able to subdue the bad guy and hold them until the police arrive. And almost always the police will say, we don't recommend that you fight back. Let your property go. It's just things, it's just property. You can always get property. If you get killed in this encounter, you're not going to get your life back. It's crap. The statement is crap. First of all, it's not the officer's decision as to what it is I do with my property. I decide to do that. Secondly, property, money, represents time. If I have a watch, a purse, a wallet, all of that represents time that I have had to spend working, maybe at a place I don't particularly like, maybe for a boss I don't particularly like, but I continue working there because I'm able to get stuff. I get a steady paycheck. I know that every 2 weeks I'm going to get X amount of dollars. It pays for my mortgage. It pays for the electricity. It pays for me to get stuff. Okay, so the idea of just disregard is socialistic. It is saying that property, there really is no such thing as property. Everything is owned in common, that kind of an idea. And so property's worthless, just throw it away. Baloney. It represents an investment of time on by the person that owns that property. Insanity is a sane reaction to an insane world. And that's contradictory. Is absolutely contradictory and therefore null and void on its face. What about feelings? What about feelings. And what they're getting at there is demagoguery. This is a question that they used to ask a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago, back in the 60s and 70s, when people were, back in the day, when you, being intelligent and having an intelligent conversation meant something. It was something you aspired to. You wanted to have a smart conversation, be with smart people, say smart things, and then you had the hippies and those folks and the other people on the left that would say, what about feelings? But what about feelings? And what that's really getting at is, instead of having discussions over political issues and debates, facts and figures, and putting those facts and figures together in a logical way to reach a valid conclusion, what we're going to do is demagogue everything. Oh, if you want to cut the budget, then that means you want to push Granny down the stairs, that you want to take hot lunches out of the mouths of small children, that you're some kind of a beast kind of a situation. And the rejoinder to that is, what about feelings? Well, what about thoughts? What about thinking? And another part of what about feelings is it lends itself to an activistic mindset. Activism is the theory that one should act first, think later. And you see a lot of that today, especially on the news with various activist groups. And what they do is they go out and what you're seeing at the border right now is activism. All of those people that came from Guatemala, that there was no plan. You could tell. There was no plan. They didn't know how they were going to get here. They didn't know whether they're going to have any food, where they're going to go to the bathroom, where they're going to shower or clean up or whatever. They had no plan whatsoever. It's just, let's get together and let's get going. And so when you act first, think later, what you're really doing is you're acting first and then rationalizing your behavior. It's a thief's mentality. Thief sees something he wants, he steals it, and then if somebody confronts him later, he rationalizes it. Well, it's okay because. No shame in my game. That's another one that I've heard on television, on the radio, and it's BS. If you don't have any shame, I don't want to know you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You should have shame, a sense of shame, for the same reason you should have a sense of pride. And the left wants to be able to say, shame should go out the window, let's forget about shame, but everybody should be proud of themselves. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud of your race. Be proud of your ethnicity. Be proud of your gender. Be proud, but don't bother to be ashamed. And it goes to the idea that there's nothing wrong with you as an individual, that if there's a problem, it's with the world at large. So it's trying to create a revolutionary mentality. You're perfect just the way you are. Same idea, where nothing wrong with you, it's the rest of the world that has a problem. So if you find yourself in a conflict or confrontation, then you need to agitate for reform or revolutionary change. Age is just a number, a flat-out lie. And it's an excellent way, if you want to waste your life, if you want a slogan that will help you to waste your life, this is it. Age is just a number. So you're going to go out and waste your time as you get older pursuing things that are going to be a waste of time. Looking to engage in careers that are not suited to you, looking to engage in pastimes and leisure activities that are not suited to you. And you're going to waste time, and then you're going to get to the point where you're around my age and you wake up and say, crap. You're going to have this panicky, anxiety-ridden existence because you're going to realize, despite what everybody told you, the age is just a number. You're going to know my days are limited. When I was 20, I thought I was going to live forever. Now I know better. And as you get older, that becomes more and more and more acute. And you start looking at yourself and asking yourself, what have I done with my life? So again, if you want to waste your life, keep telling yourself that age is just a number. You can make a difference. Insult. It's an absolute insult. But it's amazing how many people, particularly celebrities, go for this. They'll be told you can make a difference. And fact of the matter is, you already do make a difference. Saying you can make a difference suggests that you are worthless now. And if you're worthless, then how can I be worth something? And this puts the person that's telling you you can make a difference in a leadership position. They're going to tell you how you can make a difference. You can make a difference, of course, by being a lefty, by agitating for change, by being an activist. And again, you can be a leader or a change agent. And it's another lie. You cannot act with authority, a true leader, a true change agent, because they act with authority, not power. This is a statement that is trying to provoke you to act with power. Authority is the righteous use of power. If you're a leader, it means that you have either been appointed or elected to that position, that other people want you to lead them. You're a scout leader, you're the leader of the local Elks Lodge or something of that nature. That's real leadership. But you cannot just appoint yourself as a leader. This also goes to the idea of fake it till you make it. That all it requires for you to be a leader is just act like one. Just get up in the morning, walk around, start bossing people around. Tell them how to live their lives. And that goes right to fake it till you make it. Hillary Clinton's favorite slogan. And you can tell that's exactly what she's doing. She fakes it and fakes it and fakes it, because the theory is that everything is psychological in life, that if you want to be a CEO, you just act like a CEO, and bingo, you become a CEO. And it's just baloney. In order to be a CEO, you got to know things. You've got to have experience. You've got to have experience as a manager. You've got to have experiences as a leader. You've got to have experience as a supervisor. You've got to know finance, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you have to know, a lot of experiences that you need to have, a lot of skills that you need to acquire. There is no shortcut in life, and fake it till you make it or act as if is simply the big lie that there are shortcuts in life, that there is esoteric knowledge, and that once you find these little loopholes, then you can scoot ahead of everybody in line and become a CEO with, say, a high school diploma. Generally speaking, that doesn't work. Street smarts. How many times have we heard about people talking about street smarts? If you want to get rid of smart, you want to get rid of smart, one of the ways to do it is to denigrate people that are smart, which our culture has a tendency to do. They're called dweebs and nerds, things of that nature. But there's also another way to do that, and that is to take smarts and divide it. Okay, so you would have, when I was growing up, they talked about street smarts and book smarts. And that's the way they would make the distinction. Well, yeah, he's got book smarts, but he has no street smarts. Well, if you got book smarts, you don't need any street smarts. The street smarts are great if you're a gangbanger. They're great if you're a drug dealer. Okay, if you want to live in a slum for the rest of your life, I guess you're going to need street smarts. Street smarts are great also if you're looking to consort with prostitutes. Right? I was, I'll cover that some other time. Next one, it's all good. And I don't know exactly where all that came from, but that's one that you hear. Oh, and it's what it is anytime you say, I apologize, I'm sorry, and then you hear, it's all good. I saw it on a commercial. You know things are really getting, a slogan is really getting into our cultural consciousness when you see it in a commercial. And I saw it in a commercial for Kit Kat, and it was a Halloween one. Ladies carving a pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern, making a jack-o'-lantern. And the jack-o'-lantern comes to life and says, boo, and scares the crap out of her. And then they both start laughing. And then she says, I'm sorry about what I did to your face. And he responds, it's all good. No. What you need to do in that particular point, if she's apologizing, is tell her you accept her apology. I accept your apology. You acknowledge that there's values. It's all good it denies values. And the last one is no future, no past, just successive moments of now. And this is an anti-conceptual thing. It is also Eastern philosophy. The left borrows a lot of the ideas from Eastern philosophy. The idea that, again, there is no past, there is no tomorrow, there's only now, 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 now. So we shouldn't learn from the past, we shouldn't make plans for tomorrow, we should only live for today. And that might be okay if we were living in the, the 1200s or something, in which there's truly is no future, and I'm sure is no past. And again, all you're doing is subsistence. You're living for today. You go out and you're a hunter-gatherer. You go out and look to hunt for food or gather berries, nuts, things of that nature, so that you can feed yourself today. Tomorrow you get up and you got to start it all over again. We don't operate that way in the society. Our civilization is advanced precisely because we acknowledge the past and we acknowledge the future, and that we leverage our time so that we don't have to live a hand-to-mouth existence. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from Ayn Rand's Lexicon, and then I'm going to be reading from Out of the Ashes. It's a book about reclaiming American culture. And that is going to be when I come back. Thank you very much. And Ayn Rand Lexicon, about dealing with concepts and the ideas of getting to the essence of things and truly understanding what it is that differentiates one word from another, why that's important. And the one that we're dealing with now is definition. Truth is a product of the recognition, i.e. identification of the facts of reality. Man identifies and integrates the facts of reality by means of concepts. He retains concepts in his mind by means of definitions. He organizes concepts into propositions, and the truth or falsehood of the proposition rests not only on their relation to the facts he asserts, but also on the truth or falsehood of the definition of the concept he uses to assert it, which rests on the truth or falsehood of his designation of essential characteristics. The truth or falsehood of all men's conclusions, inferences, thought, and knowledge rests on the truth or falsehood of his definitions. Definitions are the guardians of rationality, the first line of defense against the chaos of mental disintegration. To know the exact meaning of the concepts one is using, one must know their correct definitions. One must be able to retrace the specific, logical, not chronological, steps by which they were formed, and one must be able to demonstrate their connection to their base in perceptual reality. When in doubt about the meaning of or definition of a concept, the best method of clarification is to look for its reference. In essence, to ask oneself, what fact or facts of reality gave rise to this concept? What distinguishes it from all other concepts? Let us note at this point the radical difference between Aristotle's view of concepts and the objectivist view, particularly in regard to the issue of essential characteristics. It is Aristotle who first formulated the principles of correct definition. It is Aristotle who identified the fact that only concretes exist, but Aristotle held that definitions refer to metaphysical essences, which exist in concretes as a special element or formative power, and he held that the process of concept formation depends on a kind of direct intuition by which man's mind grasps these essences and forms concepts accordingly. Aristotle regarded essence as a metaphysical. Objectivism regards it as epistemological. Objectivism holds that the essence of a concept is that fundamental characteristics of units on which the greatest numbers of other characteristics depend, and which distinguishes these units from all other existence within the field of man's knowledge. Thus, the essence of a concept is determined contextually and may be altered with the growth of man's knowledge. The metaphysical referent of man's concepts is not a special, separate metaphysical essence, but the total of the facts of reality he has observed, and this total determines which characteristics of a given group of existence he designates as essential. An essential characteristic is factual in the sense that it does exist, does determine other characteristics, and does distinguish a group of existence from all others. It is epistemological in the sense that the clarification of, quote, essential characteristic, unquote, is a device of man's method of cognition, a means of classifying, condensing, and integrating an ever-growing body of knowledge. It is important to remember that a definition applies all the characteristics of the units, since it identifies their essential, not their exhaustive, characteristics, since it designates existence, not their isolated aspects, and since it is a condensation of, not a substitute for, a wider knowledge of the existence involved. When rational animal is selected as the definition of man, this does not mean that the concept man becomes a shorthand tag for, quote, anything whatever that has rationality and animality, unquote. It does not mean that the concept man is interchangeable with the phrase rational animal, and that all of man's other characteristics are excluded from the concept. It means a certain type of entity, including all its characteristics, is, in the present context of knowledge, most fundamentally distinguished from all other entities by the fact that it is a rational animal. All the presently available knowledge of man's other characteristics is required to validate this definition and is implied by it. All these other characteristics remain part of the content of the concept man. And there we come to the conclusion of the concept of definitions. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from Out of the Ashes, Reclaiming America's Culture. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Out of the Ashes and Bringing Back America's Culture. This is Chapter 1, Giving Things Their Proper Names, the Restoration of Truth-Telling. When the Lord God had made Adam, the man, out of the dust of the earth, he brought to him all the living creatures one by one, and whatever the man would name them, that would be its name. It is a delightful and extraordinary moment. God has spoken the universe into being and has declared it all good, very good, and has consummated his creation by establishing the joyous Sabbath. It suggests that the pulsing heart of the universe is a liturgy, a worship work. And then the Lord, who has made man in his own image and likeness and given him dominion over all the creatures he has made, now gives him his first opportunity to exercise that dominion. Granted, it is not the same thing to name the creatures as to create them, but in giving them their names, man enters into an intellectual and aesthetic and personal relationship with them. It is the first instance of language and art. Adam names them according to what he sees in them. He calls them. The Creator allows his creature to be a poet, a maker, and Adam's act of naming is not arbitrary or tyrannical or demonic or deceitful, but true. We know what happens soon after. The first temptation is a bald lie, a corruption of words. It is the first example of indirection. Quote, and hath God said, unquote, the serpent says to Eve with mock incredulity and a feint towards sympathy with man, attributing deceit to God himself. Our original sin, as the sacred author presents it, is not that we were taught how to make fire, which was why Zeus punished Prometheus, or that we were making too much noise for the petty gods to bear, which is why the Mesopotamian deities decided to drown us all in a great flood. Our original sin was a failure to see things as they were. It was to believe a lie. If the shrewd Confucius is right, that the beginning of wisdom is to give things their proper names, then the beginning of folly is to put any stock in the wrong names. We have no choice now but to live in a world whose government and most successful businesses are mills for the mass production of deceit. Alexander Solzhenitsyn lived in a particularly horrible deceit mill, the Soviet Union. Their lies sent him to the Gulag labor camps in Siberia. To suffer persecution at the hands of liars is one thing, but to live the lie is another. We must not only refuse to give credit to the lie, we and our children must refuse to utter the lie or to use its language. So, excellent stuff, because again, it goes right to what we live each and every day, and that you'll hear people that are going to lie, and usually they do it by omission. They're not going to come out and misdefine words They will simply fail to define words. Justice is one of the classic examples of this, where the word justice gets thrown around all over the place. Well, this isn't justice. That isn't justice. And that we have to have social justice. They just make things up. And they don't define their terms. What does social justice mean, and how is it different from the other three types of justice? Justice in terms of what it is that people should expect from each other, what is it is that an individual expects from society, and what it is that society expects from the individual or deserves from the individual. So that's, again, so it's very, very important that we listen to what people are saying, both right and left. And when we hear people throwing words around, they're not defining their terms, then we need to make sure that they do that. We ask them, excuse me, what do you mean when you say X, whatever the word justice, let's say? What do you mean when you say social justice? What does that mean? I don't understand it. Now, the people, if they're being legitimate, then they're going to tell you, they'll give you a definition. If they're not, then they're going to sneer at you, and they're going to try and put you down. They're going to use 7th grade tactics on you. Don't let that happen. So this brings us to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.